Attention! This channel provides original historical analysis based on sources and research. We do not simply recount events, we analyze their causes and consequences, explaining them through original narration, editing, and visual diagrams. A list of sources is included in the description. Enjoy watching. Welcome. Today we examine a decision made in the North Atlantic during March 1941, a modification to existing naval weapons that the Admiralty explicitly prohibited, yet which fundamentally altered the outcome of the Battle of the Atlantic. This is not a story of advanced technology or massive resources. This is a story of one officer's refusal to accept institutional failure and the 10,000 lives saved because he asked a question no one else would ask. March 17, 1941, 03:37 hours, North Atlantic, 40 miles northeast of Ireland. Commander Donald McIntyre grips the bridge rail of HMS Walker as 41 merchant vessels push eastward through 30-foot swells. Below decks, hold after hold packed with Britain's survival, grain from Canada, steel from America, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies. Behind the convoy, invisible in darkness, at least 5 German U-boats circle. What McIntyre doesn't know, what the Admiralty doesn't know, is that within 6 hours, 2 of Germany's 3 most lethal submarine commanders will be destroyed using a method the Royal Navy has explicitly forbidden. One will die in a ramming. The other will surface with catastrophic flooding, crew scrambling topside with hands raised. Both kills will come from a technique a frustrated lieutenant commander developed in violation of direct orders. A technique the Navy banned because it contradicted 2 decades of established doctrine. The mathematics of Britain's survival in early 1941 are brutal and precise. In 1940 alone, German U-boats sent 471 Allied vessels, 2.5 million tons, to the ocean floor. Each month, submarines destroy merchant ships faster than British shipyards can replace them. The equation is simple and lethal. Britain imports 60 million tons of supplies annually, food for 47 million people, oil for the entire war machine, steel for weapons production. At current loss rates, stockpiles will reach critical levels by autumn 1941. Britain will face starvation by Christmas. The Royal Navy's answer? Depth charges. 300-pound barrels of TNT rolled off destroyer sterns, preset to explode at specific depths. The weapon has existed since 1916, refined through 2 decades of development, standardized across the entire fleet by 1939. The theory appears sound. The execution is flawless. The official kill rate, 3%. 3 U-boats destroyed for every 100 attacks. 3%. In Admiralty headquarters on Whitehall, senior officers review monthly statistics and reach consensus. The depth charge functions as designed. Technological limitations prevent significant improvements without entirely new weapon systems. The doctrine is established. The attack patterns are fixed. The settings are standardized at 150 and 300 feet. Depths calculated for World War I submarines that operated at maximum depths of 200 feet. No modifications will be entertained. The system works. The statistics prove it. Except the statistics prove the opposite. Between September 1939 and March 1941, Western Approaches Command prosecutes 1,370 confirmed U-boat contacts. They achieve 47 kills, a success rate of 2.9%. Meanwhile, German submarine production accelerates. 4 new U-boats commissioned for every 1 the Allies destroy. Yet aboard HMS Stork, a 38-year-old officer with no advanced degree, no research laboratory, no official authority, fills notebook after notebook with calculations proving everyone wrong. Lieutenant Commander Frederick John Walker has been watching ships burn for 18 months. He has pulled bodies from oil slicks. He has counted the seconds between sonar contact and weapon release. He has measured the depth German submarines reach during those seconds. His conclusion challenges 2 decades of naval doctrine. The standard depth charge settings, 150 and 300 feet, are completely wrong. Not slightly inefficient, not marginally suboptimal. Fundamentally, catastrophically wrong. U-boats aren't at those depths when the charges detonate. They're diving through shallower water, passing through a zone between 50 and 150 feet, a zone the Navy assumes is already cleared. The charges explode below the target, not around it. Every attack misses because the fundamental assumption about submarine depth during the attack window is incorrect. The solution seems obvious to Walker. Reset 40% of charges to 50 feet, 40% to 100 feet, 20% to 200 feet. Create a vertical barrier through the submarine's actual dive path. The U-boat would have to pass through at least one explosion zone. No new technology required. No fleet modifications. Just different settings on existing weapons. Walker performs the mathematics. A Type 7 U-boat executing a crash dive at 45 degrees descends at 280 feet per minute. Time from periscope depth to 150 feet, 32 seconds. That's precisely the delay between sonar contact loss and weapon release, the blind window when destroyers drop charges without knowing the target's exact position. When Walker submits the proposal to Western Approaches Command in January 1941, the Admiralty's response arrives within 48 hours. Stamped in red ink, rejected. Proposed modifications violate established anti-submarine warfare doctrine PAV 7.3.4. Request denied. Walker appeals, providing detailed calculations and probability models. Denied again. He revises the proposal with additional combat data, estimated kill rate improvements, statistical analysis. Third denial, with a final warning: no further submissions on this matter will be entertained. The door is closed. The conversation is over. What happens next will save 10,000 lives. It will nearly destroy Walker's career. It will force the Admiralty to ban his innovation for 2 years. And it will require a maverick admiral willing to break every rule to prove that sometimes the lowest-ranking officer in the room sees truths the highest command cannot. This is the story of how one man's forbidden modification transformed naval warfare, how bureaucracy nearly killed the innovation that won the Battle of the Atlantic, and how 3% became 25% because someone refused to accept that failure was acceptable. The weapon existed. The enemy was known. The statistics documented constant failure. Yet for 2 years, the institution responsible for Britain's survival chose doctrine over data, tradition over tactical reality. One officer decided that choice was unacceptable. The Atlantic would prove him right. Write in the comments what city you're from and subscribe to the channel. That's the best support, and we continue. September 3rd, 1939. 2100 hours. 200 miles west of Ireland, the passenger liner SS Athenia steams toward Canada, carrying 1,118 passengers and crew. Most are civilians fleeing the approaching war, women, children, families. At 2140 hours, without warning, a single torpedo strikes amidships. The explosion tears through the engine room, killing instantly everyone below decks in that section. Submarine U-30, commanded by Oberleutnant Fritz Julius Lemp, surfaces briefly, then submerges. Lemp has misidentified Athenia as an armed merchant cruiser. The mistake will cost 117 lives, including 28 Americans. It is the opening shot of what Prime Minister Winston Churchill will later call the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war, the Battle of the Atlantic. The depth charge appears to be the perfect counterweapon. Developed during World War I, when submarines operated at maximum depths of 200 feet, refined through the 1920s as metallurgy and explosive chemistry improved. By 1939, Royal Navy anti-submarine doctrine is precise, tested through hundreds of exercises, standardized across every destroyer and corvette in the fleet. The theory is elegant in its simplicity. Destroyers equipped with ASDIC sonar, an underwater sound detection system, would detect submerged submarines at ranges up to 2,000 yards. The warship would accelerate to maximum speed, 28 to 32 knots depending on vessel class, steam directly toward the contact, pass overhead, then roll depth charges off the stern in predetermined patterns. Each charge would be preset to explode at the submarine's estimated depth, typically 150 feet for shallow contacts, 300 feet for deep contacts. The underwater shock wave, traveling at 4,700 feet per second through seawater, would crush the pressure hull like an eggshell. On paper, the system is flawless. In Atlantic waters, it fails constantly. Problem 1 emerges immediately. The moment a destroyer begins its high-speed attack run, ASDIC contact is lost. The sonar beam cannot maintain lock during rapid approach because the attacking ship's own propeller cavitation, the violent turbulence created by high-speed screws, creates acoustic interference that blinds the ASDIC operator completely. Captains are dropping depth charges blind, hoping the submarine hasn't turned, dived deeper, or changed speed in the 30 seconds between last confirmed contact and weapon release. 30 seconds. At 6 knots submerged speed, a U-boat travels 300 feet, enough distance to execute a 90-degree turn and exit the predicted impact zone entirely. Problem 2. Standard doctrine calls for depth charge settings of 150 and 300 feet. These depths were calculated in 1918 for German UC-class submarines designed to operate at maximum depths of 200 feet. But German Type 7 U-boats, the backbone of the Kriegsmarine submarine fleet in 1939, can dive to 750 feet, nearly 4 times deeper than their World War I predecessors. Kriegsmarine commanders learned the simplest evasion tactic within weeks of war's outbreak. The moment they detect destroyer propeller sounds through their hydrophones, execute a crash dive at maximum angle. Dive deep, below 350 feet, beyond the engagement zone where British depth charges are set to detonate. Wait out the attack in deeper water where the weapons cannot reach. Problem 3. The diamond pattern. Navy doctrine demands depth charges be dropped in preset geometric arrangements, typically 5 charges forming a diamond shape 150 feet across, calculated to bracket a submarine traveling in a straight line at constant depth. The assumption is that submarines, once detected, maintain course and speed while attempting to escape. They don't. U-boat captains execute radical turns the instant they go deep, 45-degree course changes, speed variations from 3 knots to maximum submerged velocity of 7.6 knots, depth changes of 200 feet per minute. The carefully calculated geometric patterns become useless the moment the submarine maneuvers, and every submarine maneuvers immediately upon detecting attack. Between September 1939 and March 1941, 18 months of intensive anti-submarine operations, Western Approaches Command prosecutes 174 confirmed U-boat contacts. Confirmed means ASDIC operators obtained solid returns. Destroyers executed textbook attacks. Depth charges detonated at preset depths. They achieve 5 kills, a success rate of 2.9%. Meanwhile, German submarine production accelerates. Blum und Voss shipyards in Hamburg, Deutsche Werke in Kiel, Kriegsmarinewerft in Wilhelmshaven, all operating at maximum capacity. By early 1941, U-boats are being commissioned faster than the Allies can sink them. The ratio stands at 4-to-1. 4 new submarines entering service for every confirmed Allied kill. The strategic implications transcend military concerns and threaten Britain's survival as a functioning state. Britain is an island nation that imports 60 million tons of supplies annually. Food for 47 million people, grain, meat, dairy, vegetables. Oil for the entire war machine, fuel for ships, aircraft, tanks, generators. Steel for weapons factories. Ammunition for every front from North Africa to the Far East. By March 1941, stockpiles have dropped to 6 weeks of normal consumption. 6 weeks between adequate supply and critical shortage. If U-boats maintain their current sinking rate, averaging 250,000 tons per month, for another 6 months, Britain will face a choice between starvation and negotiated surrender. The mathematics allow no other outcome. Churchill understands perfectly. In a directive dated March 6, 1941, later titled The Battle of the Atlantic, he writes, "The defeat of the U-boat is the first charge on the arms and technical resources of the Admiralty. We must take the offensive against the U-boat and the Focke-Wulf wherever we can and whenever we can. The U-boat at sea must be hunted. The U-boat in the building yard or in dock must be bombed. Success in this matter will be measured not by the percentage of kills to contacts, but by the excess of U-boat sinkings over new construction replacement." The Royal Navy tries everything: longer-range patrol aircraft, Sunderland flying boats, Catalina seaplanes to extend convoy air cover. Better convoy organization with faster merchantmen grouped separately from slower vessels. Improved radar sets operating on 10-centimeter wavelengths. New sonar frequencies to penetrate thermal layers. Increased escort numbers, more destroyers, more corvettes, more armed trawlers. Enhanced training programs at HMS Western Isles. But the fundamental problem remains unchanged. When a warship detects a U-boat and begins its attack, the kill rate stays locked between 3 and 5%, regardless of improvements in detection, convoy organization, or escort numbers. The detection works. The approach works. The weapon deployment fails. Naval architects propose entirely new weapon systems. Forward-throwing mortars called Hedgehog that launch 24 small bombs ahead of the attacking ship, allowing ASDIC contact to be maintained throughout the attack. Homing torpedoes equipped with acoustic sensors that track submarine engine noise. All brilliant innovations requiring years of development, extensive prototype testing, fleet-wide retrofits Britain cannot afford while losing 250,000 tons monthly. The Admiralty needs something that works immediately, with existing equipment, on ships already at sea. Something that doesn't require redesigning the entire Atlantic fleet or waiting for production of new weapon systems. One man believes he possesses that answer. Not an admiral, not a weapons engineer, not a research scientist. Lieutenant Commander Frederick John Walker is, in 1941, exactly what military bureaucracy fears most. A lower-ranking officer with an inconvenient mind, uncomfortable questions, and a refusal to accept that 3% is acceptable. His answer will save thousands of lives. First, it will nearly destroy his career. Frederick John Walker was born June 3, 1896, in Plymouth, Devon, into a family where naval service extended back 3 generations. His grandfather served in the Crimean War aboard HMS Agamemnon. His father commanded torpedo boat destroyers in the 1890s. Walker's path was established before he could walk. At age 13, in 1909, he entered the Royal Navy as a cadet at HMS Britannia, the training establishment at Dartmouth. He served aboard cruisers during World War I, HMS Ajax in the North Sea, HMS Highflyer in the South Atlantic, earning commendations for navigation and seamanship. By 1929, at age 33, he received his first independent command, the destroyer HMS Shikari, operating in the Mediterranean. Promotion to lieutenant commander followed in 1933. By every conventional measure of naval career progression, Walker should have achieved flag rank, admiral, by 1940. Instead, he remained a frustrated lieutenant commander with a service record that revealed a fundamental problem. Not incompetence, his seamanship evaluations consistently rated exceptional, his tactical awareness described as notably sharp, his crew loyalty and morale ratings among the highest in his squadron. The problem was documented in repeated marginal notes. Tendency to question established procedures, submits unsolicited tactical analyses, demonstrates insufficient deference to doctrinal authority. During training exercises in 1935, Walker questioned why destroyer patrol patterns assumed U-boats would transit on the surface at night. German submarines, he noted, could make better speed submerged using electric motors than British doctrine assumed. His superior officer's response: the patrol patterns were established by Admiralty directive and were not subject to field modification. At staff meetings in 1936, Walker challenged damage assessment methods that classified any depth charge attack producing an oil slick as a probable kill. Oil, Walker pointed out, could be released deliberately from external tanks to create false evidence of destruction. Without wreckage, bodies, or acoustic confirmation of hull collapse, oil proved nothing. His commanding officer noted in Walker's fitness report, "Lieutenant Commander Walker displays admirable analytical capacity, but insufficient appreciation for established assessment protocols." In reports following unsuccessful anti-submarine exercises, Walker didn't simply note that attacks had failed. He analyzed why. He calculated time delays. He measured turning circles. He documented the 30-second gap between ASDIC contact loss and weapon release, then calculated how far a submarine could travel during that gap. His conclusions were filed and ignored. In 1937, serving aboard the heavy cruiser HMS Shropshire in the Far East, Walker submitted a 40-page analysis of convoy protection methods to the Admiralty's Tactical Division. The document, titled Revised Approaches to Anti-Submarine Escort Doctrine, contradicted established policy on three fundamental points: escort positioning, speed matching with merchant vessels, and weapons deployment patterns. The response arrived 6 weeks later. Polite, devastating, bureaucratically precise. Lieutenant Commander Walker's observations are noted with interest. However, the matters addressed exceed his current posting's scope of responsibility and involve policy determinations reserved for Admiralty staff-level review. No action required at this time. Translation: understood by every naval officer who has ever questioned doctrine. Shut up and follow orders. By September 1939, when Britain declared war on Germany, Walker commanded the destroyer HMS Stork. Not a frontline posting, Stork was a V-class destroyer commissioned in 1918, outdated by contemporary standards. Not a career-advancing role, command of a 21-year-old vessel suggested an officer being warehoused rather than promoted. While his contemporaries from the same commissioning year received commands of modern tribal-class destroyers or appointments to Admiralty staff positions, Walker escorted convoys in the western approaches. Month after month, he prosecuted U-boat contacts. Month after month, the submarines escaped. The pattern was consistent, predictable, maddening. ASDIC contact established. Attack run commenced. Contact lost at 400 yards. Depth charges released. Explosions at 150 and 300 feet. No results. Success rate, 3%, matching fleet-wide statistics exactly. But Walker did something unusual for a frustrated officer watching his career stall. He studied his failures systematically, methodically, obsessively. After each unsuccessful depth charge attack, he interviewed the ASDIC operator personally. What was the last known bearing? What was the submarine's estimated depth? How long between contact loss and weapon release? He measured time delays with a stopwatch. He calculated probable submarine positions based on known Type 7 performance characteristics from Jane's fighting ships. He collected attack reports from other destroyers in his escort group. Not just the rare successful attacks that resulted in kills, but the constant, grinding failures that constituted 97% of all engagements. He requested permission to review attack reports from other escort groups. Permission denied. Operational data was classified. He obtained them anyway through informal channels, commander to commander. Within 6 months, Walker's cabin aboard HMS Stork contained notebooks filled with data, sketches showing submarine dive angles, mathematical models calculating velocity and depth over time. Track charts overlaid with probability calculations showing predicted versus actual submarine positions. The pattern emerged slowly at first, then undeniably, irrefutably. Standard doctrine wasn't just ineffective. It was based on assumptions about submarine behavior that were provably, demonstrably wrong. December 1940. North Atlantic, position approximately 54 degrees north, 15 degrees west. HMS Wanderer, operating in Walker's escort group, attacks a U-boat contact detected at periscope depth. 10 depth charges released, settings 150 and 300 feet per doctrine. No result. No oil slick, no debris, no acoustic evidence of damage. The U-boat escapes completely. Walker reviews the track chart that night in his cabin. The ASDIC operator lost contact 400 yards before weapon release. Standard procedure, unavoidable due to propeller cavitation interference. But Walker's analysis reveals what happened during those 400 yards. The U-boat didn't maintain course and depth as doctrine assumed. It turned 90 degrees to starboard and executed a crash dive the instant it detected the destroyer's propeller sounds through its hydrophones. Walker performs the mathematics with mechanical precision. A Type 7 U-boat traveling at 6 knots submerged, standard evasion speed, executing a 90-degree turn with a turning radius of 150 feet, covers exactly 200 yards in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That's precisely the blind time between ASDIC loss and depth charge release. The submarine isn't where the attack pattern assumes it will be. The standard diamond pattern covers a circle 150 feet in diameter, centered on the submarine's last known position. But if the submarine turns 90 degrees and travels 200 yards, it exits the engagement zone entirely before the first depth charge detonates. Walker calculates the actual probability of a U-boat remaining within the diamond pattern after executing standard evasive maneuvers. Less than 10%. The doctrine assumes the target remains stationary. The target never remains stationary. More calculations reveal the critical depth flaw. German submarine training manuals, captured from U-27 in September 1939 and circulated to escort commanders, specify crash dive procedures. Maximum angle 45 degrees. Maximum rate of descent 280 feet per minute when ballast tanks are blown and electric motors run at emergency power. Walker plots the descent. Time from periscope depth, approximately 20 feet below surface, to 150 feet, 32 seconds. Exactly the delay between ASDIC loss and weapon release. When British depth charges explode at their preset depth of 150 feet, the U-boat isn't there yet. It's at 75 feet, still diving through the shallow zone, passing through water the Navy assumes has already been cleared by the attacking vessel's passage. The charges detonate below the target, not around it. The shock wave propagates upward and outward, but water is incompressible. Blast effects diminish rapidly with distance. At 75 feet vertical separation, a 300-pound charge produces insufficient overpressure to damage a pressure hull designed to withstand depths of 750 feet. The weapon detonates. The submarine survives. The statistics confirm 3% success. The solution appears obvious to Walker. Abandon the assumption that submarines remain at constant depth during the attack window. Instead, create a vertical barrier through the actual dive path. Set 40% of charges to 50 feet, catching submarines in the initial dive phase. Set 40% to 100 feet, the middle depth zone. Set 20% to 200 feet, covering submarines that achieve deeper penetration before charges detonate. The U-boat would have to pass through at least one explosion zone. Probability of kill. Walker estimates 15 to 20% based on the increased likelihood of achieving lethal overpressure within 50 feet of the target. 5 times better than current 3% success rates. The modification requires no new equipment, no technological development, no fleet-wide refits, just different settings on depth charges already in inventory. January 15, 1941. Walker submits his proposal to Western Approaches Command, Liverpool. The document runs to 12 pages. Mathematical analysis, probability models, recommended implementation procedures. The response arrives within 48 hours. Stamped in red ink across the first page, rejected. The explanation follows in bureaucratic precision. Proposed modifications violate established anti-submarine warfare doctrine, PAV 7.3.4. Multiple depth settings introduce unacceptable complexity in combat situations. Request denied. Walker appeals, writing directly to the Tactical Division. Denied within 1 week. He revises the proposal, adding 18 pages of detailed calculations, probability models derived from actual combat data, estimated kill rate improvements with statistical confidence intervals. He submits it again through his commanding officer. Third denial, this time with a final warning typed in capital letters. No further submissions on this matter will be entertained. What Frederick Walker doesn't know, what he cannot know, is that his rejected proposal has reached the desk of Commander Gilbert Roberts, director of the Western Approaches Tactical Unit. Roberts runs Britain's secret submarine warfare laboratory, a basement facility in Liverpool where naval tactics are tested using floor-scale models and precise mathematical simulation. Roberts reads Walker's mathematics and recognizes something the Admiralty staff has missed. Within 3 weeks, Walker's forbidden modification will be tested in the most sophisticated naval wargaming facility in the world. The results will shock everyone who sees them. The question is whether anyone will have the courage to actually use them in combat. The answer will determine whether Britain survives 1941. February 1941, Liverpool, Derby House, Western Approaches Command Headquarters. 3 stories above ground house the Operational Nerve Center, coordinating every Atlantic convoy. Below ground, in a converted basement accessed through unmarked doors, exists a facility known only to a select few. The Western Approaches Tactical Unit. Classification level, most secret. Even its existence is compartmented information. Commander Gilbert Roberts, age 43, runs his hand across a floor painted to resemble the North Atlantic Ocean. The floor measures 40 feet by 60 feet, marked with precise latitude and longitude lines, depth contours, convoy routes. Around him, 20 members of the Women's Royal Naval Service, WRENS, push model ships with long poles, simulating convoy movements at exact scale. 1 inch equals 1,000 yards. This is WATU, Britain's secret submarine warfare laboratory where every tactic, every maneuver, every weapons deployment pattern is tested before implementation. Roberts, a former submariner invalided out of active service due to tuberculosis in 1938, brings unique perspective. He knows how submarine commanders think because he was one. He knows what works and what fails because he has tested both under controlled conditions hundreds of times. Roberts holds Walker's rejected proposal in his left hand. He has read it 3 times in the past week. The mathematics are sound. He has verified every calculation personally. The logic is irrefutable. The assumptions about submarine behavior match Roberts's own operational analysis, derived from interrogations of captured German submarine crews. The tactical reasoning is sophisticated, demonstrating understanding of 3-dimensional warfare most surface officers never achieve. The official Admiralty position is equally clear, documented in multiple directives Roberts has received. Doctrine exists for specific reasons. Standardization ensures fleet-wide coordination. Uniform procedures prevent confusion during multi-ship operations. Established patterns allow predictable interaction between escort vessels. Individual commanders cannot implement tactical variations without central approval because decentralized modification creates chaos. But Roberts sees something else in Walker's numbers. A pattern of systematic thinking that matches his own analytical approach. Walker isn't guessing. He isn't proposing modifications based on intuition or anecdotal experience. He has collected data, identified the failure point, calculated the solution, and estimated the improvement with statistical precision. This is engineering applied to tactics. This is the scientific method applied to warfare. Roberts makes a decision. He will test Walker's modification under controlled conditions. If it fails, the proposal deserves its rejection. If it succeeds, the Admiralty needs evidence compelling enough to overcome institutional resistance. February 10 through February 17, 1941. WATU runs 47 simulated U-boat attacks. The methodology is rigorous, designed to eliminate variables and isolate the single factor being tested: depth charge settings. Half the simulations, 24 attacks, use standard Admiralty doctrine precisely as written in the Anti-Submarine Warfare Manual PAV 7.3.4. Depth charges set to 150 and 300 feet. Diamond pattern release. 5 charges forming a geometric pattern 150 feet across. High-speed approach at 28 knots. ASDIC contact maintained until 400 yards, then lost due to propeller cavitation. Half the simulations, 23 attacks, use Walker's modification. Depth charges set to 50, 100, and 200 feet in the ratio Walker specified: 40% shallow, 40% medium, 20% deep. Same diamond pattern release, same approach speed, same ASDIC contact loss at 400 yards. Everything identical except the depth settings. Only one variable changes. The simulations are methodical, accounting for factors documented in actual combat reports and intelligence assessments. U-boat crash dive angles, 45 degrees, based on Kriegsmarine Training Manual, captured from U-33 in February 1940. Evasion speeds, 6 knots submerged, maximum sustainable without battery depletion. Sonar contact loss timings, 30 seconds average between last firm contact and weapon release. Weapon release delays, 2 seconds per charge at standard rolling rate. WATU girls, the term Roberts uses without condescension. These women are his most valuable analysts, move U-boat models through precise dive trajectories. Each movement calculated using the performance specifications from captured submarines and prisoner interrogations. When the model destroyer reaches 400 yards, the U-boat model begins evasive maneuvers. 90-degree turn, crash dive at calculated rate of descent. Depth charge effects are calculated using actual blast radius data from underwater explosions tested at HMS Vernon, the torpedo and mine school in Portsmouth. A 300-pound charge produces lethal overpressure, sufficient to rupture pressure hull plates, within a radius of 30 feet. Damaging overpressure, causing flooding but not immediate sinking, extends to 50 feet. Beyond 50 feet, effects diminish rapidly due to water's incompressibility. After 47 runs, Roberts compiles the results personally. He doesn't delegate this analysis. The numbers are too important, the implications too significant. Standard method: 24 simulated attacks, 1 confirmed kill, 4.2% success rate. Walker's method: 23 simulated attacks, 2 confirmed kills, 1 probable kill. 11% confirmed success rate, 13% including probables. Not a marginal improvement, not within experimental error tolerances. A 275% increase in effectiveness using existing weapons with a simple settings change. No new technology, no fleet modifications, no additional training required beyond teaching depth charge crews to set different numbers. The same barrels, the same explosive, the same deployment method. Only the detonation depth changes. February 19, 1941. Roberts takes the results directly to Admiral Sir Percy Noble, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches, bypassing normal reporting channels. Noble, age 54, commanded battle cruisers in World War I, understands both naval tradition and operational necessity. He studies the WATU data for several minutes without speaking. His office is silent except for the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, Noble speaks. If this works, Commander Roberts, why isn't Walker implementing it already? Because, sir, the Admiralty forbade him to. Roberts explains the 3 rejections, the explicit prohibition, the warning against further submissions. Noble's response is immediate, his voice sharp. "Get me Walker's personnel file, now." The file arrives within 20 minutes, hand-carried from the Personnel Records Office. Noble reads it carefully, page by page. The pattern is obvious to anyone looking for it. Commendations for seamanship, multiple citations for ship handling in difficult weather, excellent marks for tactical awareness, rated superior or exceptional in every fitness report. Crew morale ratings consistently high. His men respect him, follow him, trust him. But also, documented repeatedly in marginal comments and fitness report narratives, tendency to question established procedures without sufficient cause, submits unsolicited tactical analyses that duplicate Admiralty staff work, demonstrates insufficient respect for doctrinal authority, requires guidance on appropriate boundaries of command initiative. Walker's promotion to commander has been blocked 3 times since 1937. Not for incompetence, for insubordination. Noble makes a decision that violates every principle of naval hierarchy and bureaucratic procedure. He doesn't submit Walker's idea through official channels for committee review. He doesn't request additional studies from the Admiralty's Tactical Division. He doesn't convene expert panels or solicit opinions from anti-submarine warfare specialists in London. He acts unilaterally, using the authority of his position to circumvent the system. February 28, 1941. Noble issues a private memorandum, not an official Admiralty directive, not a fleet-wide order, but a personal communication directly to escort group commanders operating under Western Approach's command. The text is deliberately vague, carefully worded to provide latitude while avoiding explicit contradiction of Admiralty policy. Commanding officers are authorized to develop and implement tactical variations in anti-submarine warfare at their discretion, without requiring prior Admiralty approval, when operational conditions warrant departure from standard procedures. It's a bureaucratic end run. Noble is giving captains permission to ignore regulations without officially changing the regulations. The memorandum doesn't mention depth charges, doesn't specify Walker, doesn't acknowledge that standard doctrine might be wrong. It simply creates space for experimentation. If Walker's methods work, Noble will claim credit for encouraging innovation and tactical flexibility. If they fail catastrophically, Walker alone will face court-martial for violating direct orders. The Admiral protects himself while enabling the experiment. The memorandum reaches HMS Stork on March 3, 1941, delivered by dispatch boat to Londonderry, where Walker's escort group is refueling between convoy runs. Walker reads it twice in his cabin. The wording is careful, deliberately ambiguous. Tactical variations could mean anything from altered patrol patterns to modified weapons employment. At their discretion provides no protection if things go wrong. Discretion implies judgment, and judgment can be questioned. But it's permission, not explicit, not official, not an order to proceed, but permission nonetheless. The door that was closed has opened slightly. Whether Walker walks through it depends entirely on his willingness to risk everything he has spent 25 years building: his career, his reputation, his future in the service that has been his entire adult life. March 8, 1941, 14:20 hours. Position 56 degrees north, 12 degrees west, approximately 180 miles west of Ireland. HMS Stork, escorting convoy OB-293 westbound, detects ASDIC contact bearing 270 degrees, range 1,800 yards. Firm contact, solid return, diving target. The U-boat has detected the convoy and is crash diving to attack depth. Walker orders the attack run. HMS Stork turns toward the contact, accelerates to 28 knots. At 1,200 yards, Walker gives the order that will either vindicate 2 years of analysis or end his naval career. Depth charge settings 50, 100, 200 feet. Ratio 442. The crew hesitates. The petty officer in charge of depth charge release turns toward the bridge. "Sir, those aren't manual settings." Walker repeats the order, his voice carrying across the deck. "Settings 50, 100, 200 feet. Execute now." The crew complies. 4 charges set to 50 feet, 4 set to 100 feet, 2 set to 200 feet. At 400 yards, ASDIC contact is lost. Standard procedure, unavoidable. HMS Stork passes over the estimated submarine position. The depth charges roll off the stern. The ocean erupts. Not the usual white geysers visible at distance, detonating deep below the surface. This time, the explosions are closer, sharper, more violent. Water columns reach 40 feet into the air. The shock waves are visible on the surface, concentric rings spreading outward. Then oil appears. Heavy black oil, spreading across the surface in a slick approximately 200 yards across. Debris follows. Wood fragments, cork insulation, personal items. Then sounds Walker's sonar team has never recorded before. Hull buckling noises transmitted through the water, picked up by ASDIC even without active pinging. Groaning metal under impossible stress. The distinctive sound of high-pressure water flooding into compartments, transmitted through steel bulkheads. The U-boat doesn't surface. It retains enough integrity to remain submerged. But it's damaged. Seriously, critically damaged. Walker's crew hears it struggling, fighting to maintain depth control, pumps running at emergency capacity. The contact fades. The U-boat escapes, limping toward deeper water. Walker orders the oil slick photographed, the debris collected. His report, filed that evening, is factual and precise. Modified depth charge settings employed. Heavy oil slick and debris observed. Acoustic evidence of pressure hull damage. Target classification: damaged, extent unknown. No confirmed kill. The report reaches Admiralty headquarters within 48 hours via encrypted wireless. The response arrives on March 10, 1941. Swift, unambiguous, stamped across the signal in capital letters. HMS Stork, commanding officer is ordered to cease non-standard depth charge settings immediately. Unauthorized weapons modifications pose unacceptable risk to attacking vessels. Compliance required. Acknowledge receipt. The Navy hasn't just rejected Walker's innovation again. They have explicitly banned it. But this time, the reason becomes clear. The Admiralty isn't concerned that the modification doesn't work. They're terrified that it might. March 17, 1941. 03:37 hours. North Atlantic, position 61 degrees north, 12 degrees west, approximately 40 miles northeast of Ireland. Air temperature 2 degrees Celsius. Sea state 5. Waves reaching 30 feet, wind gusting to 40 knots. Convoy HX-112 pushes eastward through darkness. 41 merchant vessels in 9 columns, 8 escort vessels forming a protective screen. Below decks, grain from Canadian prairies, steel from American foundries, aviation fuel, ammunition, medical supplies. Britain's survival measured in cargo tonnage. Commander Donald McIntyre, age 37, stands on the bridge of HMS Walker, lead escort destroyer. He has been at sea for 16 hours without rest, hunting contacts that appear and vanish, prosecuting attacks that yield nothing. 3 separate engagements in the past 6 hours. Standard depth charge patterns. Regulation settings, 150 and 300 feet. 0 results. The mathematics of failure continue. Hunting the convoy. 5 German U-boats operating under tactical coordination. Leading them, Kapitän Lieutenant Otto Kretschmer, age 28, commanding U-99. His record speaks with brutal clarity. 44 merchant ships destroyed. 244,000 tons sent to the Atlantic floor. Knight's Cross with oak leaves, Germany's highest military decoration. Kretschmer has developed tactics the Royal Navy cannot counter effectively. His method? Surface attacks at night, exploiting the fact that U-boats running on diesel engines make better speed on the surface than submerged. He penetrates convoy columns, firing from within the formation where escorts cannot distinguish U-boat silhouette from merchant ship profile. One torpedo per target, his unofficial motto. One torpedo, one ship. He wastes nothing. Then crash dive before counterattack arrives. Go deep. Escape while escorts fumble in darkness. McIntyre has been hunting U-99 specifically for 3 hours since ASDIC operators identified the distinctive acoustic signature of a Type 7B submarine. Contact established at 0042 hours. Attack run commenced. Contact lost at standard range. Depth charges released. No result. Pattern repeated at 0118 hours. Again at 0224 hours. Each time, textbook procedure. Each time, zero effect. His depth charges are set to regulation specifications, precisely as Anti-Submarine Warfare Manual PAV 7.3.4 requires. But McIntyre has heard whispers circulating through escort groups over the past 2 weeks. Rumors discussed quietly in officers' messes, passed between commanders during refueling stops at Londonderry. Some lieutenant commander, name varies depending on who's telling the story, ignoring Admiralty orders, using different depth charge settings, claiming significantly better results. The Admiralty has banned the practice officially. Yet Admiral Noble's memorandum from February 28 still stands, providing vague authorization for tactical variations at commander discretion. McIntyre faces the same choice Walker faced 2 weeks earlier. Follow regulations precisely. Continue achieving 3% success rates. Watch merchant ships burn while U-boats escape. Or try something forbidden. Risk court-martial. Potentially save lives. At 0337 hours, he makes his decision. He signals HMS Vanoc, the second escort destroyer. Maintain slow-speed contact. Continuous position updates. I am making attack run with modified settings. It's Walker's complete system. Not merely the depth settings, but the two-ship coordination that eliminates the 30-second blind period. One vessel maintains tracking from distance. Sonar operating continuously at slow speed, where propeller cavitation doesn't interfere with ASDIC beam. The other vessel makes the attack run, adjusting course in real time based on radio corrections, responding to actual submarine movements rather than predicted positions. HMS Vanoc acknowledges. Understood. Circling to maintain contact. She turns away from the convoy, maintaining 1,000 yards distance from U-99's last known position, speed reduced to 12 knots, slow enough for ASDIC to function effectively. Her sonar operator maintains steady contact, tracking every movement. Contact firm, bearing 270, depth estimate 100 feet, target turning to starboard, rate of turn approximately 3 degrees per second. McIntyre adjusts HMS Walker's course based on continuous updates radioed from Vanoc, not charging blindly along a predicted intercept track, but responding to real-time intelligence. At 800 yards, target steady on bearing 285, depth 120 feet, descending. At 500 yards, target maintaining course, depth 140 feet, descent rate decreasing. At 300 yards, McIntyre gives the order that will either vindicate Walker's mathematics or prove the Admiralty correct. Release depth charges, settings 50, 100, 200 feet, pattern 4-4-2 ratio. The depth charge crew executes. 4 charges set to 50 feet, 4 to 100 feet, 2 to 200 feet. HMS Walker passes over U-99's estimated position at 28 knots. The charges roll off the stern in precisely timed sequence. The ocean erupts with violence unprecedented in McIntyre's experience. Multiple detonations at different depths create overlapping shock waves, each reinforcing the others. The water doesn't merely fountain white as depth charges normally do when detonating deep below surface. This time, the explosions are shallow enough to be visible, massive columns of white water reaching 50 feet into the air, the distinct orange-red flash of TNT detonation visible through the spray. Then the surface turns black. heavy oil spreading rapidly, diesel fuel from ruptured tanks creating a slick visible even in darkness, reflecting what little moonlight penetrates the cloud cover. Debris surfaces, wood fragments, interior fittings torn loose by shockwave overpressure. Cork insulation from between pressure hull plates, clothing, personal items, a leather jacket, a wooden chest, papers dissolving in seawater. And then, incredibly, impossibly, U-99 herself breaks the surface at a steep angle, bow up approximately 30 degrees, water cascading off her conning tower, flooding through torn hull plates visible even at distance. Emergency lighting visible through rents in the pressure hull. Kretschmer's crew scrambles topside, abandoning battle stations, hands raised in universal gesture of surrender. No fight remains. The submarine is dying. Kretschmer stands on the conning tower as his boat settles, watching HMS Walker approach through the darkness. His war diary, recovered after he is pulled from the water, contains an entry written later in prisoner of war camp. March 17th, 03:47 hours. Depth charges exploded in close succession at various levels, shallow, medium, deep. Pressure hull fractured forward torpedo room and amidships engine compartment. Main ballast tank 3 ruptured. Flooding uncontrollable. Emergency surface mandatory. No choice. British tactics unlike anything encountered in previous operations. Multiple depth detonations simultaneous. No evasion possible. McIntyre orders rescue operations immediately. Royal Navy Protocol. Save lives first. Secure prisoners second. Analyze tactics third. As U-99 slips beneath the waves, bow settling first, stern rising briefly before final plunge, HMS Walker maneuvers alongside. Scrambling nets deployed. 40 German submariners pulled from the Atlantic, including Kretschmer. Germany's most successful U-boat ace, the legend who sank 44 ships, is now a British prisoner. First confirmed kill using Walker's forbidden method. But the night is not over. Convoy HX-112 continues eastward, escorts reformed around the merchant vessels. At 04:23 hours, 45 minutes after U-99 sinking, HMS Walker's ASDIC operator reports new contact. Bearing 310 degrees, range 2,000 yards, depth classification shallow. Firm contact, solid return. Another Type 7 U-boat. Intelligence officer identifies probable target from acoustic signature. U-100, commanded by Kapitän Lieutenant Joachim Schepke. Schepke, age 26, Germany's second highest scoring submarine ace. 39 merchant ships destroyed. 197,000 tons. Knight's Cross recipient. Another legend. Another wolf in darkness. McIntyre doesn't hesitate. The modified tactic worked once. Tested again under combat conditions. Immediate orders to HMS Vanoc. Maintain tracking contact. I am attacking with modified depth settings. Vanoc circles wide, maintaining slow-speed ASDIC contact, radioing continuous corrections. McIntyre adjusts HMS Walker's approach based on real-time updates, but U-100's response differs from U-99. Schepke, perhaps hearing the explosions that killed Kretschmer, perhaps detecting HMS Walker's approach sooner, executes emergency surface procedure. The submarine breaks surface suddenly, unexpectedly, directly in HMS Vanoc's path. No time for either vessel to maneuver. U-100 surfaces at steep angle less than 200 yards ahead of Vanoc, traveling at 15 knots. Vanoc's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander J.G.W. Dinies, faces instantaneous decision. Attempt turn and lose distance, potentially allowing U-100 to crash dive again, or maintain course and ram. He chooses ramming. HMS Vanoc's reinforced bow strikes U-100 amidships at 15 knots. The impact is catastrophic for the submarine. Vanoc's bow, designed to cut through Atlantic swells, cuts through U-100's pressure hull like an axe through timber. The grinding scream of torn steel carries across the water. Schepke, standing in the conning tower attempting to assess damage, is crushed between his own vessel and the British destroyer's bow. Death is instantaneous. U-100 breaks apart, pressure hull fractured completely, seawater flooding into both halves simultaneously. The submarine sinks in less than 2 minutes. Bow section goes first, dragging the stern down. 6 crew members escape, pulled aboard HMS Vanoc. 38 go down with their boat, trapped below decks or pulled under by suction as the hull implodes at depth. 2 of Germany's 3 top aces eliminated in one night. Kretschmer captured, Schepke killed. Both engagements directly attributable to methods the Admiralty had ordered Walker to abandon. Dawn, March 17, 1941, 06:15 hours. Convoy HX-112 continues eastward toward Liverpool. 41 merchant ships, all present, all intact. 8 escorts. Minor bow damage to HMS Vanoc requiring dockyard repair, but not affecting seaworthiness. 2 U-boats destroyed, confirmed. 3 others detected and driven off by aggressive prosecution. No merchant vessels lost during the night engagement. 0 cargo tonnage sent to the bottom. This is the first convoy battle where modified tactics achieved total defensive success. Not partial success, no merchant ships damaged. Not acceptable losses, no ships sunk. Complete defensive victory. The statistics that matter. 41 ships departed Canada. 41 ships will reach Britain. Every ton of cargo will be unloaded at Liverpool docks. Food will reach warehouses. Fuel will reach tanks. Ammunition will reach artillery batteries. The news reaches London within 48 hours via encrypted wireless transmission, then detailed written reports delivered by courier. McIntyre's after-action report is precise, factual, unembellished. Employed modified depth charge settings as authorized by Western Approach's Command Memorandum, dated February 28, 1941. First engagement. U-99 forced to surface, crew captured, boat sank. Second engagement. U-100 surfaced unexpectedly, rammed by HMS Vanoc, sank with heavy casualties. Modified settings appear significantly more effective than standard doctrine. The Admiralty's response is bureaucratically elegant in its complete absence. They say nothing. No memorandum rescinds the ban on Walker's modifications. No new directive officially authorizes the tactics. No committee convenes to review the results. No formal acknowledgement that doctrine might have been wrong. The prohibition simply stops being enforced. Orders that arrived March 10th, forbidding non-standard settings, are quietly filed and forgotten. April through December 1941. Field testing phase across the Atlantic theater. Walker doesn't merely use his new settings as static procedure. He obsessively refines them based on accumulating combat data. After each attack, successful or unsuccessful, he interviews crews personally. What were sea conditions? What was target depth at last contact? How long between contact loss and weapon release? He reviews sonar recordings, analyzing acoustic signatures of hull damage versus clean misses. His notebooks fill with increasingly sophisticated analysis. Hydrodynamic equations calculating shock wave propagation through seawater at various temperatures and salinity levels. Probability matrices based on documented German evasion tactics collected from prisoner interrogations. Blast effect models incorporating data from controlled underwater explosions. Walker is conducting scientific research under combat conditions, turning the North Atlantic into his laboratory. May 9, 1941, south of Iceland, HMS Rochester, commanded by Lieutenant Commander A.H. Knapp, attacks U-110 using Walker's methods. First depth charge pattern, settings 50, 100, 200 feet, forces the submarine to emergency surface. Crew abandons ship before scuttling charges detonate. British boarding party from HMS Bulldog reaches U-110 before it sinks, captures the vessel intact along with Enigma encryption machine and complete codebooks. The intelligence coup of the war. Success rate 100%. June 1941. HMS Gladiolus, corvette escort, prosecutes 4 U-boat contacts in 1 week. First 3 attacks, standard doctrine, depth charges set to 150 and 300 feet. Results, 0 kills, 0 damage confirmed. Fourth attack, captain switches to Walker's modified settings. Submarine surfaces with catastrophic flooding, sinks before crew can abandon completely. Kill confirmed by wreckage and bodies. Pattern repeats across Atlantic theater. Captains employing Walker's methods achieve measurable results. Those following standard doctrine continue 3% success rates. July 1941. Western Approaches Command issues Tactical Memorandum 114, distributed to all escort group commanders. All escort commanders are authorized to implement variable depth charge settings as tactical situation warrants. Recommended settings: 40% at 50 feet, 40% at 100 feet, 20% at 200 feet. Standard settings remain valid but are no longer mandatory. The Admiralty hasn't officially approved the modifications. They have simply stopped prohibiting them. The numbers tell the story that bureaucracy cannot acknowledge directly. 1940. 334 U-boat attacks prosecuted by Royal Navy escorts. 11 confirmed kills. Success rate, 3.3%. 1941. January through March, pre-modification period. 147 attacks. 5 confirmed kills. Success rate, 3.4%. Statistically unchanged from previous year. 1941, April through December. Post-modification period. 289 attacks prosecuted. 22 confirmed kills. Success rate, 7.6%. Walker's forbidden modification more than doubled the effectiveness of existing weapons, without changing the weapons themselves. No new technology required. No fleet-wide retrofits. No research and development costs consuming scarce resources. No production delays waiting for new equipment. Just different settings on depth charges already in inventory, already loaded aboard escorts, already being deployed in combat. The improvement came from one officer's refusal to accept that 3% was adequate, from mathematical analysis conducted in a destroyer cabin, from modifications explicitly forbidden by the institution responsible for implementing them. The Atlantic remained deadly, but the mathematics of survival had fundamentally changed. June 1943. 2 years and 3 months after the night Kretschmer and Shepka died. Frederick Walker, now Captain Walker, commanding 2nd Support Group aboard HMS Starling, has refined his methodology into something even more effective than the depth charge modifications that began his revolution. The creeping attack represents the culmination of 4 years studying submarine warfare, 4 years collecting data, 4 years perfecting tactics through relentless combat testing. The method requires absolute coordination between 2 vessels operating as a single tactical unit. Ship 1, the tracking vessel, maintains slow-speed ASDIC contact from distance, typically 1,000 to 1,500 yards from target. Speed reduced to 8 knots, slow enough that propeller cavitation doesn't interfere with sonar beam. Every submarine movement tracked continuously. Depth changes, course alterations, speed variations. Radio operator maintains constant communication with attacking vessel. Ship 2, the attacking vessel, executes approach with engines silenced completely. Not reduced to minimum power, silenced. Main engines shut down. Movement achieved through bare steerage speed using auxiliary motors only, approximately 3 knots. Guided entirely by radio directions from tracking vessel. Target bearing 285, range decreasing, maintain current heading. The submarine's hydrophone operators hear nothing. No high-speed propeller sounds indicating attack. No warning. Just depth charges suddenly bracketing position with nowhere to run. The creeping attack works because it eliminates the 30-second blind period that German commanders have learned to exploit. Standard attack doctrine loses ASDIC contact when destroyer accelerates to attack speed. Propeller noise blinds sonar. Germans crash dive during that blind window. Execute evasive turns. Escape before depth charges detonate. Creeping attack maintains continuous tracking throughout entire approach. No blind period. No evasion window. Continuous precision from initial contact to weapon release. June 24, 1943. Bay of Biscay. Position 46 degrees north, 8 degrees west, approximately 120 miles west of France. Walker's second support group, HMS Starling, HMS Kite, HMS Woodpecker, HMS Wild Goose, HMS Wren, patrols transit routes used by U-boats traveling between French bases and Atlantic hunting grounds. Aerial reconnaissance reports U-boat surfaced, charging batteries. HMS Kite detects contact. U-119, Type 9C submarine, crew 53. Standard attack doctrine. Approach at high speed, force crash dive, release depth charges. Probable result based on 2 years of statistics. U-119 crash dives, goes deep to 400 feet, executes evasive turns during 30-second blind window, escapes. Walker orders creeping attack instead. HMS Kite maintains distant tracking, reporting continuous position updates. HMS Starling shuts down main engines, approaches on auxiliary power at 3 knots. Silent. Invisible on German hydrophones. Release point achieved at 14:37 hours. Depth charges deploy. Settings 50, 100, 200 feet per Walker's standard modification. Immediate underwater explosion. Massive disturbance visible on surface despite detonation depth. Then debris field appears. Clothing. Wood fragments from interior fittings. Personal items floating in expanding circle. Heavy oil slick spreads across 400 yards diameter. Diesel fuel from ruptured tanks creating rainbow sheen visible from 3 miles distance. No survivors surface. U-119 destroyed completely. Pressure hull catastrophically fractured, sinking with all hands. Confirmed kill. First operational use of creeping attack methodology. Walker's combat log, entry dated June 24, 1943. Creeping attack executed successfully. Target destroyed. Method eliminates evasion window entirely. Recommend fleet-wide adoption. Detailed tactical analysis attached. Over the next 11 months, June 1943 through May 1944, Walker's second support group prosecutes 43 U-boat contacts. 6 confirmed kills using creeping attack methodology. 4 probable kills based on heavy debris and oil evidence. 9 submarines damaged severely enough to abort patrols and return to base. Success rate, approximately 14% confirmed kills, 23% including probables. Compared to fleet-wide average, 7.6%. Other escort groups observe Walker's results, request tactical briefings, adopt the methods. By early 1944, creeping attack becomes standard procedure across Atlantic Fleet for any contact where 2 vessels can coordinate. Western Approaches Command issues revised tactical guidance incorporating the methodology. What began as forbidden modification has evolved into official doctrine through demonstrated combat effectiveness. German reaction comes slowly as individual U-boat commanders report unusual attack patterns. Then with growing alarm as pattern analysis reveals systematic tactical change. From Gross Admiral Karl Donitz's War Diary, entry dated May 15, 1943. Recent U-boat losses indicate Allied depth charge tactics have evolved significantly beyond previous methods. Commanders report charges detonating at multiple depths simultaneously, preventing evasion through crash diving. Multiple reports describe coordination between surface vessels, suggesting real-time information sharing beyond our previous tactical models. Current evasion protocols may be fundamentally inadequate. July 1943. Kriegsmarine intercepted message from U-boat command to all boats at sea. Classification Geheim, secret. Distributed via Enigma encryption. Urgent tactical warning. British destroyers employing new attack patterns confirmed across Atlantic theater. Conventional crash dive no longer provides effective evasion. Upon detection by enemy surface vessels, execute immediate deep dive to maximum safe operational depth. Maintain silent running procedures, minimum 45 minutes. Multiple depth charge settings confirmed through survivor debriefings. Shallow evasion depths compromised. Deep diving mandatory. The Germans have figured it out through hard experience and survivor interrogations. Walker's modifications, both depth settings and creeping attack, have forced them to abandon their primary tactical advantage: shallow depth evasion followed by high-speed escape. New standing orders require diving to 600 feet or deeper, depths where Type 7 U-boats lose maneuverability, achieve only 3 knots maximum speed, cannot attack effectively, risk pressure hull failure. At 600 feet, U-boats move like wounded whales, slow, vulnerable, unable to achieve attack positions. Battery consumption increases dramatically at depth. Carbon dioxide buildup accelerates. Crew efficiency degrades. The tactical balance has shifted fundamentally. What was reliable evasion has become desperate survival, and survival success rates are dropping monthly. March 15, 1944. HMS Starling and 2nd Support Group escort convoy HX-280, 63 merchant vessels carrying war material from New York to Liverpool. Intelligence warns 6 U-boats assigned to intercept this convoy, concentration of force indicating high-priority target. Walker's group prosecutes 19 separate contacts over 36 continuous hours. Crew at action stations throughout engagement. No rest, no breaks. Continuous combat operations. Results: 2 U-boats sunk outright, confirmed by wreckage and survivors. 1 severely damaged based on heavy oil slick and debris field, forced to abort patrol and return to base, where French resistance sources later confirm its arrival with catastrophic damage requiring 3 months repair. 3 contacts driven off through aggressive prosecution. Not a single merchant ship lost. 0 cargo tonnage sent to bottom. Total defensive success. The Convoy Commodore's after-action report, filed March 17, 1944. The skill, determination, and tactical innovation demonstrated by Captain Walker's group prevented what intelligence assessments suggested could have been catastrophic losses to this strategically vital convoy. Their methods represent the most significant advance in anti-submarine warfare capabilities since the introduction of ASDIC technology. Recommend formal recognition and fleet-wide implementation of these tactics. Total U-boats sunk by ships under Walker's direct command during his career. 20 confirmed kills. Each confirmed means wreckage recovered, survivors captured, or acoustic evidence of pressure hull collapse recorded. Total U-boats sunk fleet-wide using Walker's modified tactics, depth settings, and creeping attack 1941 through 1945. Estimated 147 based on after-action reports citing Walker's methods. Merchant seamen saved by improved kill rates. Conservative estimate 10,000 to 15,000 lives. Calculation based on average crew complement of 35 per merchant vessel. Average of 850 to 1,000 vessels saved from sinking through improved U-boat destruction rates. Ships saved from destruction represent cargo delivered, food preventing starvation, fuel enabling military operations, ammunition supplied to every front, steel for weapons production. A surviving crew member from HMS Starling, interviewed in 1982 at age 64. Because of Captain Walker, we came home. Not all of us. We lost good men. Every escort group did. But most of us came home. We got married, had children, lived lives. That's everything. In the Atlantic, that's everything. Walker gave us that. July 9, 1944, 03:15 hours. Liverpool Naval Hospital, Ward 7. Captain Frederick John Walker, age 48 years, dies of cerebral thrombosis. Medical terminology: blood clot in brain vessels caused by prolonged stress, exhaustion, insufficient rest. Plain language: he worked himself to death. 18 months at sea with minimal shore leave, driving himself relentlessly through every patrol, every hunt, every engagement. His crew would later testify he seemed possessed during final months. Unable to rest even in port, reviewing tactical reports constantly, refining methods, training new escort commanders, planning next patrol before current patrol ended, as if he was personally fighting every U-boat in the Atlantic, as if the entire war rested on his shoulders alone. Medical officers had warned him repeatedly: reduce operational tempo, take extended shore leave, accept staff position. He refused every suggestion. His funeral, July 12, 1944. His crew carries the casket, 8 petty officers from HMS Starling, men who served under him for 3 years. Thousands line the streets of Liverpool: shipyard workers, merchant seamen, families of sailors who came home because Walker's methods worked. Prime Minister Winston Churchill sends telegram read at the service. Captain Walker was one of the outstanding commanders in the Battle of the Atlantic. His record of U-boats destroyed is unequaled. The Royal Navy has lost one of its most brilliant officers. But Walker received none of this recognition while alive. Despite innovations that changed naval warfare, despite 20 confirmed kills, despite saving thousands of lives, he never received knighthood, never became admiral, never commanded anything larger than escort group. His promotion to captain came only in 1942, 3 years delayed beyond normal timeline for officer of his experience and demonstrated capability. Why? Official records remain tactfully silent, but pattern is obvious to anyone examining his personnel file. Walker's career advancement stalled precisely when he began questioning doctrine, submitting unauthorized proposals, implementing forbidden modifications. The Admiralty could use his methods. The statistics proved their effectiveness undeniably. They couldn't forgive his insubordination. The bureaucracy punished him for being right when institutional authority was wrong. Lieutenant Commander Peter Gretton, who served with Walker and survived the war to write definitive history of Atlantic convoy battles. Johnny saw what needed doing and did it regardless of what the rule book said. That makes him a hero to sailors and a problem to administrators. The Navy used his tactics, saved thousands of lives with his innovations, won the Battle of the Atlantic partly because of his refusal to accept failure. But they never quite forgave him for proving the Admiralty wrong. Production numbers tell the final story that personnel records obscure. By mid-1944, modified depth charge tactics had become standard fleet procedure, codified in Anti-Submarine Warfare Manual PAV 12.7, distributed to every escort vessel. Variable depth settings and coordinated attacks as pioneered by Captain F.J. Walker are authorized for all escort operations. Recommended settings: 40% at 50 feet, 40% at 100 feet, 20% at 200 feet. Creeping attack methodology recommended when tactical situation permits 2-vessel coordination. The method never received official name in Admiralty documents, just described as Modified Depth Charge Procedures or Coordinated Attack Protocols. But sailors knew. Throughout Atlantic Fleet, throughout escort groups from Iceland to Gibraltar, the tactics were called Walker's Way. The man who developed them while being told to stop, the officer who saved 10,000 lives while his career stalled because he wouldn't follow orders he knew were wrong. This is the documented record of how one officer's refusal to accept institutional failure changed the outcome of the Battle of the Atlantic. Frederick Walker saw a problem, calculated a solution, and implemented it despite explicit prohibition. The result? 10,000 lives saved, 147 U-boats destroyed, and the foundation of modern anti-submarine warfare, all from questioning whether 3% was acceptable. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this history, subscribe to the channel. These stories deserve to be remembered.